Hello, my friends, and welcome to the latest spin. I'm Mike Spinner, Student Athlete World USA. It's Thursday night. We're live. The weekend is upon us. It doesn't get better. I hope everyone's doing well, and it's such a great time of year to be a sport fan. So here's what I'm doing tonight. Before I get into Student Athlete World business, which is of course why we're all here, but here I was tonight watching the Mets play the Chicago Cubs. Huge, huge game for the New York baseball Mets, and they won. All right. So they're up one on this wild card chase with 3 games to go, but they don't have a tiebreaker. So they're off to Miami. And I was at that Mets game last Saturday when it went to 11 innings and they lost an inside the park home run. The most Mets way to lose a game that I've ever seen, and I'm a Mets fan of more than 40 years, so that was pretty crazy. But that's why they call it playoff fever, right? It's a big weekend for the Mets. And while I was doing that, the Rangers were playing the Islanders in preseason hockey. Got to switch that on a bit. And Thursday night football, right? Terrible game. If you're watching me live right now, don't turn on the football game. But his Arizona-Seattle game is just not a well-played game at all to this point. But the fact that you have 3 like super awesome sporting events happening at the same time is what a Thursday. Now I get to do this, my favorite thing to do on Thursday. So welcome to the show. I hope everyone's having a great week and enjoying this time of year as much as I am. So some Student Athlete World business. First of all, we are kind of on the 2-yard line towards our busy season. And we're getting there. We're seeing the apps start to roll in, the interviews starting to kind of pile up. So on a Thursday night like tonight, I could watch the New York Mets, I could watch a hockey game, I could watch a football game pretty much at the same time, which to me is like fantasy camp. But I'm also aware, as Tim's pointed out, these days are few and far between coming up. Things are about to get real busy. So the message to you, as always, is if you're watching this and you haven't applied yet, get that application in because we're about to get real busy around here. The other piece of business, and this is substantive and important. So we will have right now, as of now, 2 different sports going to Costa Rica this year, our usual basketball tour. And in July, we have this amazing lacrosse tour. We're calling it Lax in Paradise. It's after all the lacrosse tournaments are over, the summer lacrosse showcase tournaments are over. And we're going to play some lacrosse and travel around Costa Rica. I'm volunteering to go, but that's just an aside. I'd like to be there. That's all I'm saying. Costa Rica is awesome. Hope I get to go and maybe coach. But we are shifting gears a bit as Student Athlete World. So if you're watching this and you're either planning on going to Costa Rica or thinking about it, or you're already going, we are shifting gears just a bit in the respect that we are not providing the international flight for this year. Which is a really good opportunity to save some money. So if you're watching this, let me just kind of walk you through it real quick. So typically, your price for the tour includes the international flight. So for Costa Rica, we would ask you to meet us usually in Miami, and then the group would fly as a whole to Costa Rica, which is not a very long flight. And what we've learned over the last couple of years is by asking you, if you're not from the Southeast, to purchase a flight to Miami, just to go to Costa Rica, well, it's an extra flight for you. It's more time, and it's an extra expense because of that flight. When flights to Costa Rica are very accessible and relatively inexpensive. So what we're doing this year is, you will not be charged for a flight to Costa Rica, so you don't have to meet us in Miami or wherever the departure airport would be. You're going to fly directly from your hometown to Costa Rica, and you pay for that flight. And this ultimately should save you a good amount of time and a good amount of money because, again, you don't need that extra trip to meet us. So we're doing that because of the close proximity that Costa Rica is to the United States. We think it's going to make it much easier for you as families to travel. So that's number one. So if you're going to Costa Rica, you're going to get your own flight to Costa Rica, but the tour itself will be significantly less expensive because we're not providing the international flight. Number 2, if you're going to Costa Rica with us, and it's a struggle to find a flight. We will help you. So it's not like we're saying you're on your own to get your flights. We're saying you're going to be responsible for your flights, but if needs be, we are here to help you. And ultimately, our hope is that for those of you who are going to travel to Costa Rica, it just becomes an easier process. It's going to be more efficient. It's going to be cheaper. Okay. It's going to make it a better travel experience for you. So we think it makes sense. So we're going to do it this year. And if you are simply applying right now, you haven't met me yet, and you're going to choose Costa Rica, I'm going to explain it when we meet. So don't write down notes quite right now. We'll explain it to you in great detail, but we think this is going to make for a far superior travel experience. So that is the big news from the mothership this week. I think it's a really good thing, and I think it's going to save you a lot of time and money. And that's kind of the business of this week. I was hoping we were going to announce a new tour and a new sport. We're not quite there yet. We're on the 1 yard line. Hopefully for next week, we're going to have a big announcement to make. So stay tuned. But I'm not ready to quite announce it because we still have a little bit of homework to do, but we're almost there. But some big things as we continue to expand and grow and offer our amazing product to as many athletes and families as possible. So now, what in the world? I'm going to laugh because what in the world this week is brought to you by Tylenol. Now, I'm not getting political here, people. I swear, this is a non-political show. And so I'm not telling you my opinion on the news for this week. I'm laughing and I'm smiling because there's just so much happening in the world right now that you can't help but laugh and smile about. And yeah, serious business, but like I don't watch the news anymore at all. I watch ESPN and sports apps. I kind of don't want to know what's going on just because you can't turn on the TV or open a news app without wondering if the world is falling apart. And I've made the decision not to stress about it because that's not living. And so I have my sports teams, I have my family, I have my world, I have this amazing job. I'm not going to worry about anything else. And Tylenol's been in the news this week. And there's part of me that wonders, is this all a big scheme just to boost sales? So like I look at Tylenol and they're in the news for political and perhaps political and scientific reasons. I don't even know all the details. And there's the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. And part of me wonders, is there like this grand conspiracy theory to make certain groups a lot of money with the way the world is kind of developing? So like Jimmy Kimmel disappeared and he came back and his ratings are significantly higher than ever before, which means someone out there is making a lot of money off the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. Again, not giving an opinion, no politics allowed here. Tylenol is in the news for a reason. Is the news right? Is it wrong? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But I just read a little while ago that right now, sales of Tylenol are being impacted significantly by this news, whether it's increasing or decreasing. I'm not sharing because, again, I'm not going to get into the politics of the world right now. But I just wonder, like, every time there's big news about a company or a product, is it a grand scheme to affect sales? And just think about some of the big news over the last several months. In the fall, there was a big story involving the Signal app, and it was big news. And my whole thing was, I spoke about it here. It was one of our sponsors of What in the World. I'd never heard of the Signal app before. So was that whole thing, that whole brouhaha, a ploy to get people to learn what the Signal app is? And if it was, it worked. Then we had the Coldplay concert and the Astronomer app or Astronomer, whatever the company, I don't even know what they do. All I know is I'd never heard of Astronomer before that whole scandal with the CEO and the Coldplay concert. Was that planted to make Astronomer a lot of money? We don't know, right? Probably not. But if I worked for Astronomer and I wanted people to know who we are, That would be a really good way of doing it. Same with the Signal app. They're now a household name. Is that what's going on with Tylenol? I don't know. So I just laugh because, you can't help but laugh when every time you turn on the TV, we feel like doomsday is upon us. So, what in the world this week? I had a whole Bill Belichick thing planned, and I have to bypass it this week. And I also thought about a whole Bruce Pearl thing. And I'm going to bypass it because our what in the world today goes to Spartansburg, South Carolina, and Wofford College. I think it's Wofford or Wofford or whatever. What in the world? I almost want to say I'm not going to. So Wofford, whatever they're called, I never really heard of them before. I believe they have a lacrosse team, so I've heard the name a little bit. But they have a men's basketball program that has enjoyed some success as a mid-major, if that's what you want to call them. And they fired their coach this week. Their coach's name was Dwight Perry. And it's like, all right, why is a coach fired right before the season? And they had this whole thing where a lot of their students live off campus. And they had a couple or 2 or 3 basketball players who decided to bypass on-campus housing and live off campus. And it turned out that the rules are for these athletes that you can only use the meal plan that you're given if you live on campus. If you live off campus, you have to fend for yourself. So it turns out that Dwight Perry had a few players who either after moving on campus, moved off campus, or at the last minute decided to move off campus. I didn't really get into the weeds on this one, but they kept using their on-campus meal plan, which is illegal. Now, that's a real minor thing, to be honest. I worked in college athletics 23 years. That is an innocent mistake. That is akin to a clerical error. Is it an NCAA violation or violation of college policy? Probably. Is it a major? Absolutely not. Okay. But Wofford went and fired their coach over this infraction. An infraction that probably amounted to a couple $100. That is probably an innocent clerical mistake. Something that I have a very funny feeling that Dwight Perry had no idea was even happening as it was happening, just because in the colossus that is running a college sports program, this is a detail that you really don't pay attention to. And they went and fired him. And this guy's been successful. They went to the NCAA tournament this past season. And then it just so happened, waiting in the wings was Kevin Giltner, an assistant coach at Virginia Tech, who happened to play and graduate from Wofford. And now he's the head coach. How convenient. And so it's like, what in the world? Here's what really happened. Now, do I have any internal knowledge into the functioning of the athletic department at Wofford College? The answer is no. It is very possible that despite his success, Dwight Perry was so bad at his job that he was told the smallest, most minute infraction will lead to your termination. Perhaps he's been on a performance review for years now, and this was the last straw. Maybe somehow this whole thing was legitimate. It just feels like they were looking for an excuse to get rid of this coach. And, it's like we have a chance to get rid of a coach, to bring in one of our own. Here's the infraction, something to do with meal plan. Maybe 10 years ago, there's some legitimacy to this, but here we are in the NIL era. Kids are making millions of dollars to play their sport. They're getting cars. They're buying cars that are nicer than what their coaches are driving. Are you kidding me, Wofford College? Like, this is the flag you're planting to justify a coaching change. No. Wofford College is not big or important enough to get themselves in the news for this. Unless, like Tylenol, this was a story potentially planted so people would learn that there is a Wofford College and where it's located. I don't know. All I know is I see this as being the most minor of infractions. Right now, somewhere in Division I basketball, there is a player practicing for a season who no one knows who he is. And he is going to have such a good season that a bigger program and better program is going to use some kind of back channel communication to offer that kid tons of money to leave his current school at the end of the season and go in a transfer portal and transfer somewhere else. And it's going to be completely unethical and probably illegal, but the rules allow it to happen as long as the communications are not official. That should get a coach fired, not a meal plan issue when we're only in September. So not a whole lot of money has been spent on food. Wofford College, what a terrible, horrible optic. You fire a coach, you diminish his reputation. And by the way, the statement that Dwight Perry made on the way out, first class all the way. But you give this guy, this man who's been very successful for a school that, at least in the Northeast, no one's ever heard of before, who is very successful there. You give him a scarlet letter, probably because the grass is greener on the other side. Let's call this what it is. So Wofford College, what in the world? All right. If you're going to fire a coach, there needs to be, right before the season, there needs to be a scandal. This feels really orchestrated. It feels like it was planned this way. That's a terrible look for a school that has no look at all and probably shouldn't be in the news at all for something like this. Wofford College, do better next time. Not good enough. Just my opinion. And that's it for the latest spin this week. As always, great fun. And as always, our tours are the best. This is the coolest thing you're ever going to do, but there's only one way to do it. Go to studentathleteworld.com, complete your application, interview with me, pack your bags. We'll see everyone next week. Have a great week, and let's go Mets.